Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere truly bleak, a place where the wind cuts sideways and the sun forgets to show up for months at a time. You're standing at the edge of the known world, or at least what Vikings in the late 10th century considered the edge. Greenland. It's not green, not even a little. But it is yours now, and winter is coming fast. You squint against the low sun, the last of its orange glow flickering across icy water and frozen ridges. You're not in one of the big Norse towns like back in Iceland or Norway. This is smaller, grimmer, quieter. A cluster of turf-roofed longhouses clings to the edge of a frozen fjord, surrounded by frost-bleached pastures and driftwood fences bowed from too many storms. You're a settler, dropped into this brittle colony started by Eric the Red and his followers. They came for land and freedom, and possibly because they weren't welcome back home. There may or may not have been some murder involved. But you came for the same reasons everyone comes to the edge of the world, to try something different, and maybe to vanish a little. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling cozy, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The crunch of frost underfoot feels louder than it should. The air smells like cold stone and wood smoke, laced faintly with sheep. You trudge past pens of shivering animals, past children wrapped like turnips in wool, and toward the longhouse where you'll spend the next 4 to 5 months not dying. That's not a joke, by the way. Most people won't die, but some will, and you're not totally confident you're not one of them. Right now, it's the end of autumn, maybe late October by today's calendar, and every muscle in the community is busy pretending they're not anxious. Men are mending fences that won't survive the first storm anyway. Women are kneading barley dough like it owes them money. The kids? They're already inside, pressed close to the central fire pit, arguing over who's allowed to hog the sheepdog. Historians still argue whether these settlers ever truly felt at home in Greenland, or whether it was always a little bit of a bluff, like camping with the knowledge that no one packed a tent. Either way, the homes are as good as you can make them. Long, low rectangles carved partly into the ground, with thick turf roofs and walls built from stacked stone, driftwood, and, when all else fails, frozen optimism. You duck through the low entry tunnel. It's designed to trap heat and cold air, though mostly it traps elbows and the occasional goat. Inside, your breath fogs instantly. The light comes from a small oil lamp and the fire in the central hearth, which smokes just a little too much, as usual. This is where you'll spend the season. This is your everything. One room, one fire, one roof. The room is long and narrow. Platforms along the sides hold bedding, layers of fur, wool, and if you're lucky, some straw that isn't full of fleas. The center is dominated by the hearth, a long pit lined with stone, where the cooking and heating and gossip all happen in one cozy stew. The smoke creeps up through a hole in the roof, which you can't decide is a brilliant design or a cruel joke. You sit near the edge of the firelight, warming your hands. A bowl of stew, mostly fish, maybe some turnip, rests on your knees. It's not bad, it's not good, it's hot. That's enough. Someone makes a joke about who will be the first to crack this winter. You laugh with everyone else, but your stomach curls a little. You've heard the stories. People sleep too long. They start mumbling to themselves. They cry without sound, but you're not there yet. For now, it's all about preparation. Outside, someone is butchering the last of the sheep that didn't look like they'd survive the cold. It's not wasteful, it's merciful in a grim sort of way. And the meat will help. Nothing gets wasted. You've already helped scrape the fat into a barrel to use as lamp fuel. A fringe archaeological detail some people forget. Vikings made candles and lamps out of sheep tallow mixed with moss. It doesn't smell great. You glance at the storage room, just a little nook at the back. It's stacked high with sacks of dried fish, smoked seal, and whatever dairy you could save from the summer. There's a clay pot filled with skyr, sour Icelandic yogurt that's still tangy and edible. Probably. Your neighbor, an older woman with a silver streak in her braid, sits down beside you and starts mending a wool mitten by the firelight. She hums a tune. It's off key. You smile. No one says it, but you're all waiting for the first real storm, the one that makes travel impossible, the one that tells you, that's it, doors closed. You feel it in your knees, in the way the birds have vanished, and in the sky that turns pink too early. You ask her what she thinks. She just says, tomorrow. And suddenly you're very, very tired. Morning doesn't really arrive. It sort of leaks in, gray and reluctant, through the smoke hole above your head. You blink awake to the scent of damp wool and last night's fish stew, which someone reheated for breakfast. The fire still burns low in the hearth, crackling as someone pokes at the embers with a charred stick. Outside, the wind has picked up. It moans around the edges of the longhouse like it's trying to remember how to whistle. You sit up and realize 3 things. Your right arm is asleep, your feet are still cold despite sleeping with them practically in the dog, and your entire side is damp from sleeping too close to the wall. The turf sweats, apparently. That's a thing. It's the last real day before the winter shuts its mouth. You and everyone else know it, which means the final gathering. The whole settlement, maybe 100 souls at most, is getting ready to descend on the central hall down by the fjord. Not the church, not yet. The big hall is older, from the first settlers, and feels more honest somehow. It's where announcements get made, gossip gets traded, and alliances form over mugs of sour mead. You throw on your winter gear, which is the same as your indoor gear, but with a second cloak and a hood stitched from some unlucky fox. It still smells faintly of fox. Outside, the cold smacks your nose like it owes you money. The wind's sharp, laced with sea salt, even though the sea itself is mostly frozen now, crusted over near the shore like a sealed lid. You shuffle down the icy path with your neighbors, feet crunching the thin frost. Children run ahead, slipping and squealing. One of them face plants, then pops back up laughing. You envy that. The gathering isn't exactly cheerful, but it's not grim either. More like resigned. People bring bread, mead, and dried fish, whatever they can spare. There's music, of a sort. Someone's blowing into a bone flute that might have been made for summoning whales, and a few men bang rhythmically on upturned barrels. The beat is catchy, if a little uneven. You find a spot near the fire pit, surrounded by hunched bodies in fur and wool. The warmth is real, both physical and social. You catch a few familiar faces. There's Eric the tanner, who never really recovered from last year's frostbite, and now walks like his feet are trying to escape his legs. There's Frida the weaver, her fingers still stained with dye from the summer, laughing too loud at a joke no one else heard. And then there's the elder. Every settlement has one, the unofficial voice of reason, tradition, and unsolicited opinions. Yours is a wiry man with a braided beard and a bad eye that twitches when he's thinking too hard. He stands and bangs a stick against a shield. The hall goes quiet. We'll get 3 moons of darkness, he says flatly. Maybe more, maybe less, doesn't matter. Plan for worse. You all nod like this is news. It's not, but hearing it aloud makes it feel more officially inevitable. Check your walls, feed your goats, stay out of the hills, especially after sunset. Someone coughs loudly, which gets a few nervous chuckles. You've all heard the stories, strange lights, shapes moving in the snow, echoes that don't belong to voices. Historians still argue whether Norse Greenlanders believed in local spirits or simply adapted their older Norse folklore to fit the eerie, empty vastness of this new land. But either way, no one's taking chances. The elder raises one finger. Remember the last rule. Everyone says it with him. Don't waste warmth. It's not poetic, it's just true. The gathering dissolves slowly. You catch snippets of conversation as people shuffle out. Whose cow might be pregnant, whose son tried eating moss again, whether seal blubber really does keep better in stone jars than in barrels. That last one is an actual historical debate, by the way. Archaeologists found preserved blubbers sealed in rock crevices, which probably made every dinner taste faintly of basement. You help carry a barrel of fish back uphill. It's heavier than it should be, and halfway up the path you stop to catch your breath. The fjord glitters below, glazed with ice. The sky's gone that peculiar Greenlandic violet gray that means snow is thinking about visiting. Your fingers throb from the cold. A few other settlers pass you on the path, nodding with that quiet solidarity that says we're all in this together, and also slightly doomed. Back at your longhouse, you help secure the entryway, dragging stones into place, stuffing dried moss into new cracks, and knocking snow off the roof with a long pole. Everyone's working. Even the kids are gathering twigs for kindling, their tiny hands red with effort. Inside, you all settle in again. The gathering is over. There won't be another until spring. From now on, everything happens in here. Someone pulls out a small carved idol of Thor and sets it near the hearth. No one makes a big deal of it, but you notice everyone glances at it once before dinner. As night falls again, and really it's barely afternoon, you sit by the fire and feel that final familiar click in your gut. The doors are closed, the food's counted, the wood's stacked. Whatever happens now happens in the dark. You wake in the dark again, not the cozy sort of darkness you'd find behind closed eyelids, but the thick, total kind that presses against your skin, a darkness you can almost taste. It takes a moment to realize you're still in the longhouse, still alive, still here. The fire hasn't gone out, thank every god, Norse or otherwise, but it's definitely sulking. Just a few orange coals and the faintest heat. You shuffle over, toss on some dried driftwood, and blow gently until the flames catch again. The longhouse is quiet, too quiet, honestly. You can hear the goats breathing. Someone nearby snores like a drowned accordion. And from the rafters above, something rustles. Maybe a mouse. Maybe the roof itself settling, like it's exhaling under the snow's weight. This is the moment you've been dreading, when you seal the house for good. No more popping outside for fresh air, or to stretch your legs. From here on out, the doors stay shut except for emergencies. You start by checking the turf walls. Over the last few weeks, everyone's stuffed moss, hay, and even bits of old clothing into the cracks. The result? A smell somewhere between old stew and wet sweater. But it works, mostly. You tap the outer door frame, now iced shut on the outside and bolted from within. A thick fur curtain hangs just behind it, meant to trap whatever heat tries to flee. And here's the real kicker. Most of your livestock, they're in here with you now. Yep, the goats, 2 sheep, and a very irritable cow named Savala are all tucked into the back half of the longhouse. Not out of love, not even out of superstition, but because their body heat is free insulation. Historians still argue whether Norse Greenlanders built truly dual-purpose homes or simply adapted their structures as winters grew harsher, but the result was the same. Cows in the kitchen, basically. You're not thrilled. The smell is vivid, but the warmth, worth it. You lay more straw near the animals and adjust a few makeshift partitions, mostly woven mats and stacked barrels, trying to keep the worst of the mess from spilling into the living area. It's more illusion than separation. This is now a one-room world. Your bedding gets upgraded slightly. Someone added a second furs and one of the children gave you a hot stone wrapped in cloth. You say thank you. You mean it. And then the ritual begins. You've done it a dozen times already, but now it feels different. Final. You go corner to corner, checking for leaks, drafts, gaps in the turf wall, where icy wind might sneak in. Every crack you miss is another chill to wake up to. You feel along the stones with gloved fingers, press your face close to where the turf meets wood, and listen. Nothing. Then, you swear it, you hear something outside. A scrape? No, just the wind. Probably. You hum quietly to yourself. A little lullaby from home. You can't even remember the words anymore, but the tune still hangs in your ribs. Someone stirs near the fire. It's Frida, half awake, already fussing with the stew pot for breakfast. She looks at you and nods. It's time? You nod back. No need for more. Together, you hang the heavy wool sheet over the final door crack and seal it with a strip of frozen fat smeared between the stones. Not elegant, not poetic, just necessary. And just like that, you're locked in. You sit back by the fire, chewing on a bit of flatbread that tastes mostly like the barrel it came from. Across the room, the cow sighs audibly. You swear she does it on purpose. This is your world now. 12 adults, 4 children, 1 baby, 3 goats, 2 sheep, 1 opinionated cow, and a fire that refuses to cooperate, plus a few mice, probably, and whatever might be living in the rafters. The The walls sweat slightly, the ceiling drips near the fire, the air feels like soup made from feet, and yet, you're warm, sort of. Okay, not freezing to death warm, that'll have to do. You glance toward the roof hole where daylight used to visit. Now it's stuffed with layered skins and turf, with just a small chimney pipe sticking out. It keeps some smoke out, not all. Your eyes sting a little, your throat itches. Welcome to Indoor Air Quality, Viking Edition. Still, you keep the fire going, always. The embers are your lifeline. Lose them, and you lose the ability to cook, to stay warm, to dry your socks, which are now permanently damp. Fire isn't just comfort, it's existence. You remember a story someone told last year about a man who let the fire die, then had to beg embers from a neighbor half a day's walk away. He came back with burns, frostbite, and no eyebrows. No one forgets that story. Someone has carved small notches into a wooden plank above the hearth, one for each day since the first snow. It's a poor excuse for a calendar, but it helps, sort of. You glance at it now, 5 notches only, a couple hundred to go, maybe more. Who's counting? The fire snaps suddenly, a spark jumps, everyone flinches, then silence. And the quiet crackle, and the breathing of people wrapped in wool, and the slow shifting of animals pressed together. The longhouse has gone still again. Outside, the wind rises. You lean back, your spine against the wooden wall, and close your eyes. You've done what you can. Now the house must hold. You wake not because you're rested, but because it's your turn. Again. Your eyes open to the same blackness. No dawn, no window glow. Just the same shadows pressed up against every wall, wrapping around every sleeping form. You can barely see your hand in front of your face, but you know where you are. You feel it. Your breath clouds the air as you push yourself upright. The floor is cold. The floor is always cold. You reach for the kindling basket by the hearth, brush away a mouse dropping or two, and start nudging the embers awake. You've done this before. You'll do it again. The fire must never die. You feed it slowly, a curled twist of birch bark, then a small splinter of dry wood, then another. Your hands work by muscle memory while the rest of you tries not to think about how tired you are. You hear movement behind you. The cow shifts and lets out a grunt, followed by an impressively timed fart. You pretend not to notice. Everyone pretends. It's just part of the background music now. Eventually, the fire flares. Dim orange light spills across the interior, just enough to reveal a pair of tiny feet sticking out from under a fur blanket, and a dog sleeping belly up on someone's leg. You wrap your cloak tighter and shuffle toward the door. Not to go out, no one goes out anymore, but to check. Because something's changed, you feel it. The cold is different today. You run your fingers along the door seams and feel the thick crust of ice building on the inside of the frame. Not frost, actual ice. You scrape at it with your fingernail and pull back a flake the size of a coin. Yep, it's happened. The sea is gone. Okay, not gone, but the fjord is officially frozen. You remember what it looked like in the summer, glassy, dark, moving with purpose. Always something bobbing on its surface. Boats, fish, driftwood, the occasional confused seal. Now it's a white sheet, unbroken, and the cold it brings is worse. It sinks deeper, settles into bone. Historians still debate whether Norse Greenlanders relied more on sea-based or land-based food sources as their settlements evolved. But either way, once the fjord froze, the game changed. No more fishing, no more hunting trips by boat, no more salted sea air drifting through the door. Now it's just wind, ice, silence. You sit back by the fire and let the realization settle over you, like another blanket you didn't ask for. Someone else wakes up. It's Hrold, the man with eyebrows that look like frozen spiders. He peers around blearily and grunts when he sees the fire's already going. "Bless you," he says, voice like gravel soaked in cold tea. "Fjord's frozen," you say. He doesn't react, just nods, then coughs into his sleeve. Frida appears from behind a curtain with a pot of something soupy. Maybe stew. Maybe yesterday's stew reimagined. You don't ask. You just accept the bowl, warm your fingers on it, and eat without tasting. The conversation today is minimal. No one has the energy for more than the essentials. Someone scraped ice from the inside of the roof beams. Someone else thinks one of the goats might be sick. You offer to check. Anything to move. Anything to do. The goats blink at you sleepily, bundled into their straw corner. One of them is chewing on something that is either a rag or part of your mitten. You check their hooves, feel their noses, press your ear against their sides to listen. All alive, all warm. Back by the fire, someone pulls out a leather-wrapped scroll, a list, the food inventory. You don't like lists. Lists mean numbers. Numbers mean knowing. And knowing, in this case, is terrifying. But you glance over the shoulder anyway. Fish, 3 barrels. Barley, 6 sacks. Dried sill, 2 slabs. Butter, enough to whisper about. Cheese, mostly crumbs. Pickled turnips, depressingly plentiful. You all pretend this will last. It might. It has before. But only if the weather behaves, the animals stay healthy, and nobody gets creative with portions. You take your turn grinding barley into meal with a stone that's worn thinner each year. Your fingers ache after 10 minutes. The dust chokes the air, but there's a rhythm to it that dulls the edge of dread. Outside, you hear it again. Silence. Complete. No bird call, no waves, just wind whispering past the roof like it's trying to tell you a secret. And maybe it is, because every winter someone gets ideas. They try to venture out, to break the stillness. Don't walk on the fjord, the elder warned yesterday. It may look solid, it's not. He didn't say what happened to the last one who tried. He didn't need to. Instead, you press another log onto the fire, adjust your blanket, and stare into the flames. The sea is gone for now, and in its place is only the weight. You eat the same breakfast again, and again, and again. It's always some combination of barley porridge, dried fish, and, if the gods are feeling generous, a crumb of cheese or a spoonful of sour milk that makes your jaw twitch. This morning, it's a piece of flatbread so stale you half expect to chip a tooth. You chew it anyway, slowly. The goal isn't to enjoy, it's to survive. The storage alcove in the back of the longhouse becomes the most visited spot in the house. It's not big, just a little recessed space built into the thick wall, with shelves made from salvaged driftwood. The air inside smells like smoked meat, old seal oil, and something faintly acidic that might be pickled cabbage, or might be regret. You inventory the food with care. A little too much care, if you're honest. People have started counting things more than once, not because they forgot, but because counting feels like control. The sacks of barley grain are solid and familiar. You touch one like it's a friend. Each sack is expected to stretch the entire winter. Watered down into porridge, baked into flat cakes, maybe used to thicken a stew when you need the illusion of a meal. You've got 3 barrels of dried fish, mostly cod and something else that probably didn't want to be identified. It smells strong, stronger when it's boiled, strongest when it's fried, which almost no one bothers doing anymore because firewood is precious and noses are sensitive. And then there's the butter, the good stuff, salted, pale, waxy, and carefully hidden in a pot buried under straw so the children won't sneak any. The cheese? Already turning, but that's fine, that's normal. Good cheese fights back, someone once joked. You're not sure it was a joke. Historians still argue whether the Norse Greenlanders imported food from Iceland during winter via hidden caches or small caravans over the ice. But if they did, it wasn't often. And it definitely isn't happening this winter. Which means what you've got is all you'll get. You remember the summer harvest. Short, uneven, barely enough to get excited about. You helped scythe the barley fields, bent double under the sun, swatting away flies and pretending you weren't disappointed. Even then, you knew it wasn't going to be a fat winter. The only thing in abundance now, turnips. No one likes turnips. They grow well here because they seem to enjoy suffering. Their taste is bitter, their texture odd, and their smell unforgettable. And yet, there they are, stacked in a corner like little white curses. Every stew, every mash, every surprise meal someone tries to dress up with herbs that no longer taste like anything. There's always a turnip lurking beneath it all. You sigh, grab one, peel it, again. Someone started carving little marks into the wooden beams near the fire. tracking how many meals you've had versus how many you should have had. It's not helpful. It's also a bit ominous. The kids call it the food doomstick. You're starting to see their point. To break the monotony, a few people suggest swapping food, not trading exactly, just rotating flavors to trick your tongue into thinking life has variety. You end up with a small square of seal fat wrapped in a cabbage leaf. It tastes like the idea of flavor rather than flavor itself. But it's new, and that's something. One fringe historical tidbit you'd almost forgotten. Fermented shark was not a Greenlandic thing. That was mostly an Icelandic tradition, which means the worst smelling food in this house is probably still the cheese. Someone has started making milk soup, a desperate blend of sour skyr thinned with hot water and a bit of grain to give it texture. It tastes like warm disappointment, but you drink it anyway. Because here's the thing, if the food runs out before the snow melts, it won't matter whether you like the taste. You've heard the stories, everyone has. The winter 3 years ago when half a settlement starved, when people boiled leather to make broth, when a dog went missing and no one asked too many questions. No one says it aloud, but rationing has begun. You watch the portions shrink subtly, thinner bowls of stew, flatter bread, shared pieces of fish. You don't argue, you just learn to chew slower, and yet, in the middle of all this bland survival, there's an odd moment of grace. Someone, probably Frida again, finds a small stash of dried berries in the bottom of a jar. She doesn't hoard them, she puts one in each bowl. Just one. Tiny, wrinkled, sweet. It tastes like memory. You close your eyes when it touches your tongue. For a second you remember summer, you remember sun, you remember laughter that didn't echo against the walls like it was scared to stay. And then you open your eyes, and you keep chewing. Because winter doesn't care about your feelings, but it might give you just enough to make it through. You don't remember when you last changed clothes. Not because you're dirty, though, let's be honest, you absolutely are, but because changing requires two luxuries, warmth and spare garments. You have neither, so you do what everyone else in the longhouse does. You wear everything you own, all at once, all the time. Your base layer is a linen tunic, scratchy and stained in places you've given up trying to identify. Over that, wool, then more wool, and then fur, cloaks, mittens, hats, wraps, belts, bindings, leg wraps, and whatever that thing is you tied around your foot last week when the boot lining started falling apart. Historians believe Norse Greenlanders wore layered woolen clothing throughout the year, but especially during winter. The wealthy might have imported finer materials from Iceland or Norway, but out here on the edge of nowhere, you take what you can stitch. The result? A walking bundle of damp, slightly mildewed fabric that creaks when you move and smells like, well, like everything in the longhouse. You try to air things out by the fire, but that only half works. The smoke clings to everything. By now, you've started to identify people by their personal scent mix. Seal oil and hay, goat and wool, sour milk and pine tar. Yours? Probably something close to burnt sock with a hint of nostalgia. Your boots are stitched hide, lined with sheep wool, and reinforced with what might be squirrel fur. Because nothing says fashion like rodent couture. And they are never dry. The moisture seeps in from the floor, the walls, the animals, your own feet. Some days it feels like your toes are made of sponge. On other days, they feel like they're made of wood. Neither is encouraging. The fire helps, but it's always a delicate game. Too close, and your boots start to steam. Too far, and they freeze solid by morning. Frida tries to help. She gives you a slather of rendered animal fat and a strip of sealskin to waterproof your soles. It works, for about an hour. Then your feet start to smell like soup again. Still, you can't complain. There's a man here, Leaf, who only has one cloak, and it has holes. You saw him stitching straw into the lining the other day with a fishbone needle. You asked if it helped. He said, "Not really, but it's loud when I walk, so people know I'm coming." Humor is survival here. One woman wears a hat made from the belly of a hare. It's warm, she claims, but it keeps slipping sideways on her head like it's trying to escape. There's a boy who insists on wearing his boots to bed because they'll run away otherwise. No one argues. Everyone's had that dream. You start to understand how identity here isn't tied to what you wear, but what you can keep wearing. Clothing is armor, it's shelter, it's a boundary between you and the creeping frost. Fringe fact: some settlers likely wore outer garments sealed with fish glue or birch pitch to create primitive waterproofing. You tried that once. You still can't get the smell out of your elbows. The itch, though, that's the real problem. Wool itches. And when you haven't taken anything off in weeks, your skin begins to protest. Loudly. Your arms, your legs, your back, they all develop that slow, constant burn that makes you want to shed everything and roll in the snow. You don't, obviously, but the temptation is real. At night, you scratch without waking. In the morning, your fingernails are suspiciously dark. You stop asking why. The smoke doesn't help. The hearth churns out a constant haze of wood smoke and animal stink, soaking into every thread. The cloth closest to your nose is stiff with soot. You try to rinse it once in a bowl of melted snow, but it just turns the water gray and makes the cloth heavier. Historians still argue whether settlers had designated wash days during winter or simply accepted the grime as part of survival. From your experience, you'd wager it was the latter. Your hands are red and cracked, especially around the knuckles. Frida gives you a dollop of goose fat to rub on them. It helps until you touch your food. Then everything tastes like poultry lotion. You miss clean clothes. You miss different clothes. You miss the feeling of slipping into a dry tunic, freshly woven, still smelling of sun and grass. You'd trade a week's worth of turnip stew just to pull on a pair of wool socks that didn't collapse at the ankle like a sad accordion. Instead, you learn to shift your layers strategically. Move the itchy bits, rotate the stiff patches, sit closer to the fire until the sweat pools under your collar, then move again. Someone jokes that if you all survive the winter, you should burn the clothes instead of washing them. You all laugh, but a little too long, because the truth is, by the time spring comes, you and your clothes will be one. A slow, stitched partnership forged by smoke, sweat, and stubbornness. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep you going. You wake up warm, but not in a good way. It's the kind of warmth that smells like goat, breathes like cow, and pulses with the faint squelch of something stepping in something it shouldn't have. Congratulations. You've now survived a week inside a sealed longhouse in Viking, Greenland. And you're sharing body heat with livestock. You open your eyes to the hazy flicker of the fire. It's still burning, bless its cranky heart, but the smoke is thicker today. You blink against it and pull your wool collar over your nose. Doesn't help. Smells like wet fur and regret. Across the room, 2 goats are lying side by side with one of the children. The little one sleeps soundly, using a goat's belly as a pillow. The goat doesn't mind, or maybe it's too tired to care. You sit up, stretch, and groan as your back crackles like old ice. The air inside is humid from too much breathing and too little circulation. Somewhere above, the roof creaks, snow shifting its weight like a bear trying to get comfortable. You shuffle past the hearth and step over a puddle that may or may not have come from the cow. Svala, the long-suffering cow, is chewing cud and staring at you with deep bovine judgment. She's stabled in the far corner now, penned in by barrels and straw bales, and she seems convinced this entire arrangement is your fault. You mutter an apology anyway, just in case. Because here's the thing, your life now revolves around this shared heat. It's not romantic, it's not quaint, it's just thermodynamics. When the wind howls and the walls sweat frost, you need every warm body to stay above freezing. That includes the animals. Historians agree that Norse settlers in Greenland likely cohabited with their livestock during the coldest months, particularly in harsher winters when building separate structures was impractical. Archaeological remains of turf longhouses show divided but connected spaces, animal stalls and living quarters separated by little more than low walls or woven partitions. In your case, it's a sheepskin curtain and a prayer. The goat smell has settled into everything. Your blankets, your food, your dreams. You woke up yesterday convinced someone had put a hooved animal in your lap. They had. It was cold. The upside, it's working. The room stays a few degrees warmer this way. You haven't seen frost on the inside of the door in 2 nights. The downside, you are starting to moo in your sleep, or so you're told. You're not the only one losing it. The baby, tucked in a bundle of cloaks near the hearth, starts making dolphin noises when it's hungry. A man named Jorund has taken to singing love songs to the sheep. No one stops him. The fire pops and someone curses quietly. A new crack has formed in one of the support beams. Nothing dangerous, not yet, but enough to make everyone a little more aware of how close the roof is. You help Frida lay fresh straw beneath the animals. It's warm at least. You try not to think about why it's warm. Cleaning duty rotates daily. Today it's your turn. You fetch a wooden scoop and a battered pail and set about collecting animal waste with the kind of grim determination usually reserved for battlefield surgery. You haul the pail to the ash pile near the hearth. It'll get taken out eventually, dumped into a pit dug into the snowbank on one of the rare days someone opens the door. For now, it just simmers gently beside the fire, contributing to the aroma of shared survival. Someone once said that humans adapt to anything. You're starting to believe it. You step outside for a moment, not far, just into the entry tunnel, where the cold is so sharp it burns at your cheeks. You gulp down a few mouthfuls of clean air. Then you hear it. A knock. Not a real knock. Not exactly. More like a branch, or a bird, or the wind playing the games again. But it's enough. You pull the curtain back and rejoin the room, because you're not alone here. And not just because of the people and the animals and the dog who keeps farting in its sleep. There's a presence in the dark. Call it cabin fever, call it imagination, call it old ghosts in new places. But sometimes at night you feel like someone or something is watching. Historians still argue whether Norse settlers in Greenland fused their pagan beliefs with Inuit traditions or invented new ones out of isolation and fear. But in this place, in this sealed wooden womb of warmth and steam and animal breath, stories become real fast. Someone tells one now, just a whisper near the fire, about the old man who went out during a blizzard and came back with eyes like glass and a voice that wasn't his. You listen, you pretend to scoff, but when the cow shifts and lets out a low, almost human-sounding groan, you pull your blanket tighter and try very hard to stay awake, just a little longer. You don't wake up so much as fade into awareness. There's no sunrise to pull you from sleep. No rooster, no bell, no cheerful bird song. Just the slow rhythm of a breath, the clatter of someone stoking the fire, and the low groan of a floorboard under a half-frozen foot. You blink a few times, unsure what day it is. It doesn't matter. The calendar stopped mattering the moment the door closed. But the work? That never stops. You haul yourself up from your pile of fur and wool, feeling like a loaf of half-baked bread left to cool in a barn. Every joint cracks, every muscle protests, but up you go, because there's always something to do. Today's firekeeping duty went to Leif, whose idea of stoking coals is poke them and hope. The result? Lukewarm porridge in a hearth that looks like it's having an identity crisis. You squat beside it, roll your eyes dramatically, and coax the embers back to life with a practiced hand. You whisper encouragement to the fire like it's a moody child. Eventually, it grudgingly agrees to exist again. The first job of the day? Ice chopping. Yes, inside. The roof beams sweat overnight, and that moisture drips down the walls and freezes in long, spiky streaks. You chip them off with a knife and flick them into the slop bucket, pretending you're harvesting icicles for fun. Then comes water. You melt snow in a big iron pot over the fire, slowly, inefficiently, and with the deep existential dread that comes from watching a gallon of snow reduced to a single cup of drinkable water. The process takes hours. The kids help by hauling in fresh snow from the entry tunnel, faces red, boots soaked. They giggle and squabble. Someone throws a snowball. It hits the goat. The goat wins the rematch. The day creeps along with the sluggish pace of frozen sap. Someone repairs a cloak with a bit of gut string. Another sharpens a bone needle by scraping it on a rock. You pull the stitching loose on one of your mittens, unraveling a few inches to rewrap around your ankle where the cold bites hardest. Every task is small, but every task is survival. You shovel out the ash pit near the hearth. You sort dried herbs by scent because the labels wore off months ago. You mend a crack in the wall with a gob of clay and a silent prayer. Historians agree that winter life in Norse Greenland was filled with repetitive, necessary routines, chores that blurred into ritual, not because they were spiritual, but because they were the only thing keeping the walls upright and the people sane. You rotate the meat in the storage room, shifting the slabs so they don't mold. You crush dried seaweed into powder and mix it into the porridge. It tastes like sadness but has salt, and that's worth something. You rub your hands together by the fire and realize, not for the first time, that you've forgotten what it's like to be dry. Not just your clothes, you. Your hair clings to your scalp. Your skin always feels slightly sticky, like steam and smoke have replaced your outer layer. It's not glamorous, but it's weirdly grounding, because this is what your ancestors did, day after day, task after task. And even though no one outside this longhouse will ever know you spent 4 hours today boiling snow, or patching a hole in a boot with fish skin, or teaching a child how to braid straw into kindling bundles, you'll know. And that's weirdly enough. By midday, not that time means anything anymore. You all stop for a meal. Thin broth, maybe a scrap of smoked lamb if you're lucky. Everyone gathers close to the hearth. The room hums with quiet. People sip slowly. Children chew solemnly. The fire crackles like it's telling a story in a language you can almost understand. Someone starts humming, a tune with no words, the kind that only exists when you hum it. The baby gurgles along. You smile. Then it's back to work. You clean the lamp. You turn the hides drying by the rafters. You sweep the floor, even though the floor is more concept than reality at this point. And through it all, the sun stays hidden. The light never quite arrives, just a gray smear behind the smoke hole, like the sky is embarrassed to show its face. The goats chew, the sheep sigh. The cow belches like royalty. You wipe your hands on your tunic, sit back on your heels, and let your eyes close for a moment. Because you did the work. And you'll do it again tomorrow, whatever tomorrow even means. You wake to cold silence, not quiet, silence. No coughing, no movement, no goat sounds, just the fire's faint whisper and the rhythmic drip of melting frost from a ceiling beam into a clay bowl. And that's not good, because it's your turn again. The fire needs feeding, and if it dies, well, you might die too. You sit up, rubbing sleep from your face. Your breath puffs in front of you, visible even inside the longhouse. Not a good sign. The embers are weak. You poke at them, heart racing a little. Just a glow, no flame. 1 more hour, and you might have been waking up to frozen toes. You grab the kindling, blow into the ash bed, whisper nonsense encouragements like, "Come on, you stubborn little miracle." It sparks, catches. You build it carefully, twigs, bark, a sliver of dried dung if it's dry enough to burn, and not just smoke. Eventually, the orange glow brightens. A few flames flicker up. Warmth starts to stretch its fingers through the longhouse again. You sit back and exhale, because that was close. You're not the only one watching the fire now. The others stir. You hear the creak of wood as someone shifts. A child mumbles something in their sleep. The cow grunts, but no one really says anything. Everyone knows the rule. The fire must live, even if it's 3 a.m., even if you're half delirious from hunger and smoke, even if the wind outside sounds like the gods dragging frozen swords across the sky. This is your anchor, the one thing between your fragile warmth and the ice pressing in from all sides. Fringe fact: some Norse settlements carried coals from house to house inside horn containers packed with moss, primitive thermoses of fire. Losing the flame wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. In here, you take shifts, not official ones, but everyone knows whose turn it is, and no one dares sleep too deeply when it's theirs. You think about that time 2 winters ago when someone fell asleep during their fire watch. The whole house didn't freeze, but half the meat did, and the elder's beard snapped off in clumps from frost. No one jokes about it. Not really. Today, your job is firekeeping, but also ash emptying, and that part sucks. The ashes go into a large ceramic pot beside the hearth. It fills up fast. You can't just toss them outside. Too cold, too risky. You wait for a mild day, meaning only slightly lethal cold, to open the door and dump the contents into the pit beside the house. You draw the short straw today. You wrap up in every cloak you can find, pull on mittens that feel like frozen cabbage, and steel yourself. The outer door groans. The air bites. You dump the ashes. The cold hits your teeth. Literally. You taste it. And then you slam the door shut again, bolt it, rehang the inner curtain, and sit by the fire until you feel your fingers again, just in time to burn them slightly on a stray coal, which, ironically, feels like progress. You spend the rest of the day babysitting the fire like it's a newborn goat, stirring it, feeding it, coaxing it back when it sulks. It becomes a relationship. You notice the sounds it makes when it's healthy, the color of good coals, the difference between resting flame and dying gasp. You even start naming the logs, the good ones, the ones that burn clean and slow. Ah, yes, good old knot face, you're up next. It helps because everything else is dim, damp, and demanding. But the fire, when it's right, glows, warms, reminds you that you're still human. At night, you nest near it. You lie on your side, one leg sticking out because the floor is warmer there. The dog joins you. You pretend not to mind, and you listen to the wind, to the flicker, to the soft breathing of a dozen people pretending this is normal. Historians still debate whether Norse fires were kept constantly or allowed to burn out and relit each morning. But here, in your longhouse, it stays alive, because the moment it goes out, so might you. You wake up with your heart pounding, not because of a sound, not because of movement, but because of the absence of both. The longhouse is silent, too silent. No fire crackling, no animals shifting, no baby fussing, just the tight, heavy stillness of a room holding its breath. You sit up slowly, rubbing at the stiffness in your neck. Around you, everyone else is still sleeping, or pretending to. Even the dog hasn't twitched. You glance toward the hearth. Embers glow, faint and red, like watching eyes in the ash. Not dead yet, but close. You stand, creaking all the way, and tiptoe toward the door. Not to leave, no one leaves, but because something doesn't feel right. And that's when you hear it. Knock, once, twice, then nothing. You freeze. It wasn't the wind. The wind howls, whines, scrapes, but this was rhythmic, deliberate, like someone testing the outside of the longhouse with a bare knuckle. You look at Frida across the hearth. Her eyes are already open. She heard it too. You both sit still, listening. Nothing. Just the wind again. Just the quiet creak of the turf roof settling. Eventually, someone stirs in their sleep, coughs, rolls over. The tension breaks. The spell dissolves. But that feeling? It lingers. Because here's a strange truth. When you spend weeks in darkness, closed in with smoke and silence, your mind starts to invite company. And sometimes you hear things that aren't supposed to be heard. Whispers, taps, steps, and the others have started talking around it. Never directly, but with a kind of resigned awareness. Old Einar muttered last night about the snow people, as if they're neighbors. They walk the ridges, he said, pulling his blanket tighter. They knock before they come in. You laughed, quietly, nervously, because you're not superstitious, not really. But you are cold, and tired, and stretched so thin by routine and rationing that your dreams are starting to leak. Someone swears they saw eyes in the smoke hole. Another claims they heard singing just outside the door. The baby? It started crying last night, before anyone even stirred. Not a hunger cry, just a long, low wail. Historians still argue whether Norse settlers brought Icelandic ghost lore with them to Greenland, or whether Greenland simply created its own legends from isolation, dark and cold. Either way, they believed in things, and after 3 weeks in this house, so do you. There's a shape you see sometimes, always in the corner of your eye, never there when you turn your head. A figure maybe, or a shadow where there shouldn't be one. You told yourself it was just the hanging meat casting strange silhouettes, but yesterday the meat was moved, and the shadow stayed. Frida has taken to tossing bones into the fire and muttering old prayers, some in Latin, some in Old Norse. You don't ask, you just nod and sit closer. Someone scratches symbols into the wooden lintel above the door. Protection marks. They say it keeps the others away. You smile politely, but you notice you sleep easier after it's done. The nights are long, so long they stop feeling like nights at all, just unbroken stretches of dark, broken only by flickers of firelight and half-remembered dreams. And in that strange in-between space, anything feels possible. You've heard stories of travelers who ventured too far into the white, following voices, chasing lights, and came back changed, or didn't come back at all. One man swears he saw a face pressed against the window, frosted, pale, smiling too wide. There is no window. You look at the door again, just wood, just fur curtains, just moss, but you wonder what's on the other side of it, and whether it wonders about you. You huddle by the fire, tossing in a bit more wood than you probably should. Let it burn bright tonight. Let the light reach the corners, because shadows here feel heavier, and they're starting to remember your name. There's a quiet ritual that starts around now, not something anyone planned, not something you talk about, but something that happens slowly, almost accidentally, because this is the point in the winter where you all begin to need something else. You can't just ration food, you have to ration fear. And so, the charms come out, the carved amulets, the leather pouches filled with herbs, the tiny wooden idols tucked under bedding or hung near door frames. They weren't there a week ago, or maybe they were, but hidden, like secrets too shy to show themselves. Now, they're everywhere. Thor's hammer carved into a spoon handle, a faded cross painted in soot above the hearth, a tiny figurine with no face sitting among the dried fish, silent, crooked, watching. No one says a word about it. You hang your own offering in the rafters today, a bit of bone carved with runes you barely remember how to spell. Maybe it was for protection, maybe fertility. You honestly don't care which. It's something, and that's enough. Across the hearth, Frida is whispering to a lump of cloth she calls a sleep doll. You pretend not to see, because the darkness has rules, and everyone's trying to play by somebody's version of them. You remember when Christianity started taking hold here. You weren't there for the first church's construction, too young, too busy stealing leftover bread crusts, but you remember the shift. Suddenly, Latin prayers replaced old songs. The elders stopped carving the sun symbol into door frames. People crossed themselves instead of speaking to the trees. And yet, here you are, sealed in a longhouse with goats and ghosts, and both gods listening. Historians still debate how Norse Greenlanders balanced Christian belief with their older traditions, whether they blended them, rejected them, or lived in quiet contradiction. You can confirm now, contradiction wins. At night, the prayers are a mess. The old man mutters a psalm while rubbing a Thor amulet. Frida sings a lullaby about a frost giant who eats dreams unless you give him butter. You once saw someone bow toward the fire like it was an altar. And honestly, it kind of is. There's a wooden cross nailed near the smoke hole now. Below it, someone's tucked a few red berries, long dried and wrinkled, like a miniature offering. You remember one of the sagas, something about ghosts that hate iron. You move the cooking pot a little closer to the door, just in case. A child asks you why the cow is wearing a necklace of braided straw. You shrug. Because she's special, you say. The truth? Someone braided it during the night. You didn't ask who. There are stories that surface now, not sagas, not myths, just things people whisper when the fire burns low and sleep is still far away. The shadows that live under the snow. The ones that knock twice, then vanish. The woman with frost for hair, who trades memories for warmth. You don't believe them, not really. But you still turn your boots inward before bed, so the soles face the hearth and not the door. Keeps bad spirits from following your tracks, someone told you. Old habits, new fears, all of them pressed between fur blankets and smoky rafters. Someone lights a tiny candle near the wall, a stub of tallow in a cracked shell. Not for light, there's enough fire for that, but for comfort. You watch its flame flicker and think about how many people, in how many winters, have done this exact thing. Lit a candle against the dark, offered a prayer to no one, hoped it would be heard. The longhouse creaks again, a slow, dragging groan in the roof beams. You hold your breath, just wind, probably. But still, you reach up and touch the bone charm hanging from the rafters. It's cold against your fingers, but it's there, and that counts for something. You wait coughing, not loud, just a dry, scratchy bark in the back of your throat, like your lungs have finally decided to join the conversation. At first, you blame the fire. The smoke's always thickest just before dawn. But then you notice Frida across the hearth, coughing too, and Leif, and one of the kids. Nothing dramatic, just a chorus of rasping breath and subtle throat clearing. That's how it starts, not with fever, not with collapse, but with a little tickle you all pretend isn't there. You sit up slowly, wrap a shawl around your shoulders, and sip lukewarm snowmelt from a wooden bowl. It helps. A little. The air is dry and damp at the same time, somehow both smoky and wet, like living in a moldy fireplace. Your skin itches, your eyes burn, your nose has started to run even when you're not crying, which is most of the time. Frida wipes her face on her sleeve and mutters something about needing more herbs. But the herb stores are almost empty now, and the ones that remain taste like they've already given up. You help her brew something anyway. A bitter tea made from dried angelica root and moss, with a splash of sour milk to stretch it. It tastes like boiled shoe. You drink it anyway. Because sickness in winter isn't just unpleasant, it's dangerous. You watch the others with quiet calculation now. Who's moving slower? Who's sleeping longer? Who doesn't laugh at the goat's antics anymore? Old Einar hasn't gotten out of bed since yesterday. You brought him a warm stone and a ladle of broth. He nodded, said thanks, then went quiet again. The baby has a rattle in its chest, not every breath, but enough to make the mother keep one hand on its back all night. Historians still argue whether Norse Greenlanders understood the spread of illness, or just treated it as bad luck or the will of the gods. Either way, the cure was the same. Isolate if you can, pray if you want, endure if you must. You don't have enough room for isolation, so you just sit a little farther apart and hope your cough doesn't echo too loudly. The longhouse smells worse these days. Not just smoke and sweat and goat, but sickness. That hot, sour tang of fever and phlegm and fatigue. You open the smoke hole a crack to let some air through. Cold rushes in immediately, but it feels clean. You leave it open longer than you should. The cow sneezes. You sneeze. You both look at each other like this is somehow personal. Your chest aches after hauling water. Your joints feel stiff even when you're still. You remember your mother's remedy for colds, boiled onions, honey, and thyme. You have onions. No honey, only thyme. So you do what you can. You chew a sliver of pine bark for the mentholy burn. You press warm stones to your chest. You sleep as close to the fire as you dare. Frida draws protection runes in the soot above the hearth. You let her. Because no one wants to say it, but you all remember the winter when the sickness didn't stop. The one with too many empty beds by spring. The one with quiet burials beneath snow that hadn't yet melted. You glance around the longhouse. Count heads. Again. You do it more often now. Still 12 adults. Still 4 kids. Still 1 baby. Still 1 cow. Still 2 sheep. Still 3 goats. Good. You say their names in your head like a prayer. You start wiping things down with snow now. Hands, bowls, wood surfaces. It helps you feel like you're doing something. Someone jokes that you're the cleanest person in Greenland. You smile but don't stop. Because here, in this thick stew of people and animals and air that never moves, all it takes is one. One bad cough. One person who doesn't get better. One fire that dies in the night because the sick person on shift couldn't stay awake. You press your hand to your forehead. Cool. For now. You don't mention the tightness in your ribs. Not yet. Instead, you get up. Fetch more snow. Feed the fire. Stir the soup. You keep going. Because winter isn't kind to the sick. And the longhouse only has room for the living. You can't remember the last time anyone laughed properly. Not a chuckle. Not a polite smile. But real, warm, snort through your nose laughter. So when it happens today, loud, sudden, and just a little bit desperate, you nearly drop the bowl of broth in your hands. It's Jorund, of all people. Middle-aged, usually quiet, known for mumbling observations about cloud patterns and goats with attitude. And today, he's doubled over, gasping for air between cackles because Frida accidentally sat on a ball of goat dung that froze into her blanket. It's not that funny, but it is. Because right now, anything that reminds you you're alive is funny. Someone else joins in, then another. You laugh too, not at the dung, not even at Frida, but at the absurdity of how much it hurts to laugh, and how badly you needed to. And just like that, the mood shifts, because here's what no one tells you. Once the chores are done, once the food is eaten, once the fire is fed, there's nothing left but your thoughts, and those will devour you if you're not careful. So you tell stories, old sagas, new lies, dreams you once had, things you saw before you came here, things you wish you hadn't. You talk in turns like musicians taking solos in a song no one rehearsed. Someone starts with a folktale, a woman who married a bear and gave birth to children made of snow. You respond with a half-remembered tale about a village that traded its shadows to a sea witch in exchange for longer summers. Historians know Norse Greenlanders passed time in the dark winters with storytelling, but what gets lost in the records is how essential it was. These stories aren't just entertainment, they're glue. They hold the walls of your mind together. You describe the way Iceland smells in spring, sulfur and sheep and melted snow. Frida tells a story about a man who stole a wind spirit's comb and could never walk up hills again. Leif, voice low and scratchy, shares a story from his mother, a dream where everyone lived inside a whale, and the whale didn't know. Some of the kids join in. Their stories are wild, ruleless, surreal. Goats that speak Latin, babies that ride crows, a fish that grants wishes but only if you feed it turnips. You laugh, you nod, you add details, because the stories are living things. They stretch and bend and pick up new limbs, and they remember. Someone recites part of a saga. You don't know which one. It doesn't matter. The words feel ancient and warm in the air, like firelight you can breathe. You add one of your own. You tell them about the summer you got caught in a storm and thought the sky was falling. You tell it slowly, with pauses for effect, and add a few extra waves for drama. They reward you with nods and small smiles. It's not just escapism, it's survival. Because here, where time has no shape, and the wind sounds like voices, and you haven't seen the sun in weeks, your mind needs somewhere else to go. Somewhere with color, with sound, with jokes, and the stories become your transport. One fringe fact you bring up to impress the group. There's evidence that Norse Greenlanders kept oral histories about sea creatures no one else ever recorded. Things with too many teeth or none at all. No one believes you. They demand proof. So you make some up, and everyone loves it. Even the cow seems to listen. Or maybe she's just chewing thoughtfully. You start assigning parts. You and Frida act out a little skit about a merchant who gets lost in a glacier and trades his clothes to a talking seal for directions. You forget to cough. You forget the ache in your hands. For 20 minutes, you're not surviving. You're living. Eventually, the laughter quiets. The fire burns low again. People begin to drift off, blankets pulled tight, heads leaning against walls. But the silence now? It's different. It's not heavy. It's full. Like the stories are still echoing through the beams. Like the longhouse is holding its breath, smiling with you. You knew this moment would come. You've been dancing around it, stretching meals thinner, inventing new stews with old ingredients, smiling politely when someone offers their bowl to someone smaller. But today, you open the last barrel of dried fish. The smell hits you like a fist of ancient brine in despair. Even the goat flinches. You pull out a slab, hold it up to the light, and realize it's more bone than meat. You don't say anything. Everyone already knows. The larder is low, not, oh no, we need to ration low. It's, if we drop a bowl, someone might cry low. You gather around the storage shelves. A couple of cracked pots, a sack with maybe a fistful of barley left, a string of onions so soft they collapse when touched, and the turnips, endless, white, judgmental. Someone tries to joke. Well, we'll all smell the same by spring, just like boiled roots. No one laughs this time. You count the jars again, and again. You start fantasizing about things you'd never normally want. Burnt crusts, fish heads, that weird jar of mystery paste someone claimed was medicine. Frida tries to make soup. She slices turnip thinner than paper and floats it in hot water with a single shred of meat. It tastes like memory loss. You take smaller bites. You eat slower, and at night, you lie in the dark and feel your stomach argue with your ribs. Historians still debate whether Norse Greenlanders experienced repeated famines or only periodic food shortages. But from where you're sitting, the answer is yes. The baby stops crying as much now. That should be a relief. It isn't. The kids start asking questions no one wants to answer. How long until we eat something real again? Can you cook snow? Can you cook clothes? Joran suggests boiling leather. He's not joking. There's an old pair of boots in the corner. Frida's been eyeing the soles. You suddenly remember a story your grandmother told about a woman who softened a belt in broth just to feel like she was chewing on something that used to matter. You scrape your bowl clean, then lick the spoon, then lick the bowl. You're not alone. The goat bleats. Someone glares at it. No one's saying it out loud, but you're all thinking the same thing. How far would I go? Not yet. You're not there yet. But the shadow of that thought is now in the room with you, sitting beside you, whispering. You find yourself hoarding a crust of bread in your pocket, a bit of stew you pretend to eat, then hide. You tell yourself you're saving it for someone else. You're not. One fringe fact you remember suddenly. Ancient northern cultures sometimes chewed dried moss with seal oil just to keep hunger pangs at bay. You eye the moss in the corner. You wonder what seal oil tastes like when you stop pretending it's disgusting. You shift your thoughts away. Instead, you try to invent new recipes. Rock stew for texture. Shadow soup, just hot water in a dark bowl. Imaginary fish pie. You hum while eating turnips and pretend they're trout. A child draws a picture in the soot with a stick, a feast. You see bread, meat, something that might be cake. You want to hug them, you want to cry, you want to eat the drawing. Frida starts boiling bones again. The same bones, over and over, just to get one more whisper of flavor. You hold a cup of broth, lukewarm, thin as fog. You cradle it like it's gold. And then the dog barks. Everyone jumps. The sound is so sudden, so sharp, it cracks the silence. It was nothing, just a noise, a shadow, the wind. But for a heartbeat you hoped. You hoped someone had come, a traitor, a traveler, a miracle. You close your eyes, sip your broth, swallow hard. The hope tastes thinner than the soup. Today, you cry into a sack of barley flour. Not dramatically, not even loudly. Just a slow, stupid leak of tears while you're hunched in the storage alcove, trying to measure out enough grain for everyone without making it obvious that there's barely enough for anyone. It starts with a sniff, then a sting behind your eyes. Then suddenly your face is pressed into the rough sackcloth and you're sobbing as quietly as possible, so no one hears. The flour smells like dust and old wood. It sticks to your cheek. You don't care. You whisper something, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse, maybe both. It's midwinter, the deepest part, the part where light feels like a memory, and laughter feels like something you only dreamed about once. No one talks much today. Even the goat seems subdued. The fire crackles, but weakly, like it's just doing the bare minimum. You go about the day with lead in your limbs. You stir the pot. You pass the bowls. You fake a smile at a child who offers you half a rock they're pretending is cheese. And when someone asks if you're okay, you say, "I'm fine," because that's the rule. No panic, no whining, just get through. But under the surface, everyone's cracking. Hjoran spent 15 minutes yesterday arguing with the cow. Frida caught herself talking to a turnip. Leif sat by the door for 3 hours, just listening. And you've started hiding. Not long, just little moments, slipping into the dark corner behind the meat barrels, pretending to be reorganizing something, just so you can sit in silence and not be strong for 5 minutes. You hear someone singing softly, a lullaby. You don't recognize the words, you don't ask, because everyone's doing something now to cope. The baby chews its own sleeve until it sleeps. A girl draws suns on every surface she can reach. An old man sharpens the same stick over and over. Historians speculate that midwinter in Norse Greenland was not only physically taxing, but emotionally punishing when the psychological toll of isolation began to show. You're living proof of that now. Sleep doesn't come easy. When it does, it's full of strange dreams. Falling through ice, walking through fog, holding meals that melt in your hands. You wake up sweating, even when the air is cold. One night, you dream about your mother. Her face isn't right. Her mouth moves, but her words are backward. You wake up with a scream caught in your throat. You don't tell anyone. Instead, you make tea from bark and snow. It tastes like ash. You drink it anyway. Because sometimes surviving means lying to yourself a little. You say things like, "We still have enough. Spring is coming. It won't always feel like this." Even if you don't believe it, someone spills a pot today. It wasn't full, just broth, but the sound of it splattering on the floor hits harder than it should. Frida doesn't say anything. She just stares at the puddle, then walks away. You mop it up in silence. Later, when no one's looking, you lick a spoon just to remember what food used to feel like. And you cry again, just for a moment, in the pantry, because no one sees you in there. Because the flour doesn't judge. Because letting it out means you might be able to hold it together a little longer. Just long enough to stir the pot. Just long enough to tell a story. Just long enough to make it through one more night. And that's all you need. One more night. You wake up and know something's wrong. It's not the fire. It's fine. Flickering quietly. Same as always. It's not the wind. That's just the usual moaning through the cracks like the island itself is complaining. It's the silence. Too quiet. The kind that lands on you like a heavy blanket. You look around. People are still asleep, mostly. But there's a space where someone should be. Einar. His blanket is neatly folded. His boots are still by the wall. But he's gone. You don't say anything. Not yet. You get up, quietly. Check the entry tunnel. Nothing. The door's still bolted, the snow untouched. He didn't leave. He didn't need to. You find him in the corner, tucked beneath his cloak, face turned gently toward the wall like he just wanted a little peace. You sit down beside him, place a hand on his shoulder. Cold, still, gone. You stay there a while, not crying, not praying, just being. Because when someone leaves in winter, it's like a log burning through in the hearth. No drama, just quiet collapse. Eventually, the others wake. They see the space. They understand. No one says much. Frida brings a candle. Leif sets a bowl of stew near Einar's hands. He won't eat it. That's not the point. It's respect, ritual, the last kindness. Someone tells a short story about him, how he used to sing off key when chopping wood. You smile. And then, life moves on, because it has to. You wrap him in wool and lay him in the coldest part of the house. He'll be buried when the ground softens, maybe. Or he'll rest in the snowbank beside the house until then. That's the way here. Historians still argue whether Norse Greenlanders had formal burial rites in winter, or simply waited for spring. The truth is probably both. Depends on the year, depends on the snow, depends on whether you can dig through ice. You return to the hearth. The pot still needs stirring. The kids still need feeding. The cow still needs you to clean her stall. You do it, because grief is a luxury. Mourning, here, is quiet. It's the space between footsteps. It's the moment your hand hesitates over a second bowl, then remembers. It's the fact that no one sits in his spot. You lie awake longer than usual that night. The firelight flickers on the ceiling, dancing like it's trying to keep your mind moving. You stare at the rafters, counting the knots in the beams. 1, 2, 3. You think about the others. The woman from 2 houses over, who slipped on the ice and never quite healed. The boy who got lost in the storm last year and was found with his hands curled like claws. The man who walked into the dark on purpose. And now Einar. He was old, he was tired, he was probably ready, but still, he was yours. Part of the rhythm, part of the warmth. And now, he's not. The kids don't ask questions. They've seen this before. This is their normal. You stir the stew with a little more care that night. You adjust the firewood. You drape a second blanket over the elder who coughs in his sleep. Because that's what you do when someone leaves. You live a little softer. You remember what you still have. And you make it through one more night. For them, for you, for everyone still breathing in the dark. The wind is louder today. Not just louder, meaner. It shrieks across the roof like it's trying to tear it off piece by piece. Every time a gust slams into the wall, the longhouse shudders, and someone inside mumbles a prayer, or a curse. Hard to tell the difference these days. You sit by the fire, wrapping a frayed wool shawl tighter around your shoulders, watching the shadows jitter across the wall. You're not scared exactly, just alert, because wind like this doesn't come alone. It brings company, blizzards, wolves, things you don't name. Frida says she heard something last night, something walking, not just the wind shifting snow, but steps, crunching, measured, deliberate. You didn't hear it, but you believe her. You hear it now, actually, not outside, inside your memory, or under the floorboards, or just behind the fur curtain near the door. You shake it off. It's just the wind. Probably. Someone volunteers to check the roof. You all stare at him like he's announced he's going to marry the sea. Still, he bundles up, ties rope around his waist, and climbs into the crawl space beneath the turf. You hear him moving above, muttering to himself, hammering a loose board. The sound is reassuring, proof that someone can still act like this is normal. But then the hammering stops. Long pause, no footsteps. You all freeze, then, BAM! He reappears, dropping through the trapdoor like a sack of flour, snow dusting his hair, eyes wide. "Wolf," he says, just the one word. No one asks questions, because here's what you know. Wolves shouldn't be near the settlement in winter, not when there's easier prey elsewhere. But something's driven them here. Desperation, hunger, or worse, curiosity. You bar the door again, double it, slide heavy beams across, drape more furs, anything to muffle the scent of livestock and warm bodies. You quiet the children, you quiet yourself, because predators listen. And in this wind, sound travels. Historians have long noted the presence of wolves and other predators in Norse Greenlandic folklore. But some accounts blur the line. Wolves that walk on two legs or speak in riddles or knock before entering. Frida places a charm on the door, a tooth carved with runes. Someone lights a candle and sets it by the threshold. The cow shifts, uneasy, the goats press closer together. The dog won't stop growling under its breath. You listen. And then you hear it. Not the wind, not the creak of the roof, but a thump, low, deliberate, like a paw, or a boot, or something in between. Twice, then silence. You don't breathe. Frida clutches her pendant. Someone begins humming a lullaby, too softly to be for the baby. You sit by the fire and grip the poker in your hand like it might matter, like you could stop whatever's outside if it really wanted to come in. You remember the old stories, the ones about travelers who vanished in storms, about eyes in the dark, about a wolf who knew people's names. You wonder if that story was just a story. Then, as quickly as it began, the wind shifts, pushes hard against the door once more, then passes. The howling fades, the thumps do not return. You all exhale at once, like a single terrified animal. No one speaks, not for a long time. Eventually, someone stirs the fire. Someone feeds the cow. Someone breaks a turnip in half and passes it around like communion. You lie down near the hearth, eyes open, staring at the rafters. And you wonder, not for the first time, if surviving means learning which things not to name. Because not every visitor knocks, and not every knock means it wants to come in. Sometimes it just wants to remind you, you're not alone out here. The sound wakes you before the light does. A single drip, then another, then plink. You open your eyes, staring at the ceiling. The usual smoke-smudged beams, the same sag in the turf above the hearth. Then, drip, again. You sit up slowly, blinking into the firelight. Someone's already moving near the wall, staring at a bowl they left out to catch the condensation. It's full now. You look around. Little glistening trails line the seams of the beams. The roof is sweating, the ice is cracking. You stand and listen, really listen. Not to the room, not to the coughing or the shifting animals or the creak of old wood, but to what's outside. And there it is, faint, distant, beautiful. Water, not much, not a stream, not even a trickle, but the smallest shift in the way the wind moves over the land. A softness to the air, the sound of something loosening. You push back the fur curtain and peek into the entry tunnel. The stones are damp. A patch of ice on the inner wall has shrunk slightly since yesterday. You hold your hand to the door, still cold but not as sharp. The fjord is thinking about waking up. Historians suggest that Greenland's coastal ice often began to fracture before spring truly arrived, sometimes weeks before the snow melted. A tease, a warning, a promise. Frida sees it too. She touches the beam above the hearth and whispers, "We're turning the corner." Everyone pretends not to hear. Hope is dangerous, because this part, the in-between, is trickier than the deep dark. Now, you get restless. You dream about walking, about air that doesn't smell like smoke, about the taste of something green, and suddenly the longhouse feels smaller. You notice how close everyone sits, how loudly they chew, how the goat breathes through its nose like it's judging you. You snap at Leaf for stirring the soup too fast. You apologize a moment later, but still. It started. The ice is melting outside, and something in you is twitching. You sweep the floor 3 times today. You wash a blanket in melted snow even though it immediately freezes again. You rearrange the storage pots. It doesn't help. Frida starts talking about the garden. She hasn't seen the dirt in 3 months, but she lists what she'll plant anyway. Barley, leeks, maybe onions if the seed stock hasn't spoiled. You nod along, even though you're not listening. You're staring at the smoke hole, watching a droplet of water gather at the edge. You watch it fall. You watch the next one. You count the seconds between them. A child climbs up on the bench beside you and whispers, "Is it over?" You don't answer. Because no, it's not. Not yet. There are still storms coming, still cold nights ahead, still a dozen meals to stretch from 5 days of food. But the drip is real, and you feel it, in your bones, in your breath, in the way the longhouse exhales just a little less urgently. The goats shuffle less, the cow eats more, the dog actually stretches when it wakes up. You leave the door unbolted for 1 hour, just one. You sit by it, you let the air come in. It hurts, the chill bites, but it doesn't cut the way it used to. And when you close it again, you smile, just a little. You dream differently that night, not of feasts or firelight, but of puddles, of thawed earth, of mud between your toes, of walking outside and hearing the crunch of not snow. And for the first time in a long while, the dark doesn't scare you when you close your eyes, because something is shifting. And even if the cold tries to come back, it won't win, not now. You step outside, not all the way, not far, but enough. The door creaks open, resisting, groaning like even it forgot how to function. You pull it slowly, cautiously, half expecting it to splinter in your hands. But it moves, and behind it, light. Not sun exactly, not the warm golden kind you used to see in your dreams. This is pale, watery, thin as old linen, but it's light, and that alone is enough to make your eyes sting. You squint hard, then blink, then laugh, once, sharply, involuntarily. The sound bounces off the snowbanks, startled and half alive. You haven't been outside in weeks, maybe months. Time turned in on itself long ago. And now, here you are, standing in the crusted doorway, breathing air that doesn't taste like smoke and breath and goat. It burns, it hurts, but it's yours. Behind you, someone gasps. The kids crowd the entry, clutching blankets around their shoulders like robes. One leans out, wide-eyed. "It smells weird," he says. You sniff. He's not wrong. The snow smells alive, not clean, but messy, damp, full of bacteria, of possibility. The ground isn't clear yet. Everything's still buried, still white. But the snow has sunk, compressed, melted around the edges. You see shapes, rocks, fences, pieces of the past peeking out like forgotten bones. You take a step. It crunches, then a second. You wobble. Your legs complain. You realize embarrassingly that you've forgotten how to walk properly. Your muscles ache from too many days curled near the fire. Your balance is gone. Your knees mutter threats. You smile anyway, because your feet are touching the outside world. Historians theorize that spring for Norse Greenlanders was a time of almost spiritual relief, when the isolation finally cracked and the settlements could stretch, breathe, begin again. You're feeling it now. Someone else steps out, then another. Soon you're all there, blinking in the pale brightness like a herd of animals, rediscovering the sky. The cow moos loudly from inside, annoyed at the change in air. You consider inviting her out, then think better of it, one miracle at a time. Frida points to the ridge. A drip of water runs in a line along a rock face. "That's new," she whispers. You all nod like it's sacred. You walk slowly, carefully. The snow is deceptive, solid in some places, ankle-swallowing in others, but it holds. You move toward the fjord, not too close. You don't trust it yet, but from a distance you can see the cracks, the thin silver veins running through the ice like spiderwebs. You close your eyes and listen. There, a faint pop, a shifting groan, the sound of something ancient waking up. You used to hate that sound. Now it's a lullaby. You stretch your arms above your head. Your joints click, your shoulders scream. But for the first time in ages, you feel the sun on your face. Sort of. Okay, it's more like a ghost of sun, but you'll take it. Behind you, someone starts singing. Just a little tune. Wordless, aimless, but it floats across the ice like it belongs here. You hum along, and then the baby laughs, loud, clear, like a bell, like a spring thaw in sound form. Everyone stops, turns, smells, even the cow seems pleased. You don't stay out long. The cold is still sharp. The snow still hides traps. Your skin still hasn't forgiven you for months inside. But when you step back into the longhouse, it feels bigger. The walls are the same. The smoke is the same. The smell is, unfortunately, exactly the same. But something's shifted, because now you know there's an after. Now you've felt it, touched it, heard it in the cracks of ice, and the giggle of a child who doesn't know what you've all just survived. You sit back by the fire and stretch your legs. They hurt. That's fine. That's how you know they work. And tomorrow? You'll go a little farther, stay out a little longer. Maybe find the garden, maybe dig a path, maybe plant something. Not today, but maybe. The snow is pulling back. Not fast, not in any dramatic rush, but in slow, soaking surrender. Every day now, something reappears. A stone, a fence post, the end of a bench you forgot was buried, a bit of driftwood shaped like a seal's head. You wave to it anyway. It's been a long winter. You start sweeping the steps outside, not because they're useful yet, but because sweeping is hope with a handle. The ground is mush beneath the snow, muddy, rutted, defiant. The ice on the fjord is splitting, laced with cracks and shallow pools of melt. You hear it groan sometimes, like an old man stretching after a long sleep. Frida finds a sprig of green poking through the edge of the wall. She yelps, almost drops her pot of water. Everyone gathers around like it's a treasure. It's a weed, it's glorious. Inside, the longhouse is emptier, not of people. Though yes, you still glance toward Einar's corner sometimes, expecting to see his shoulders moving beneath a blanket. But emptier in another way. The dread has thinned. The air no longer feels like it's pressing in. The fire, still central, no longer feels like your only heartbeat. The door stays open longer now. You prop it with a stone. There are still cold days, still storms that sneak in, snarling and sharp. But they pass quicker. You brace, endure, and know the thaw is waiting behind them. One by one, you start moving things outside. A barrel to dry, a cloak to air out, a bundle of hay to shake loose. You feel taller somehow, like you're coming up for air, like gravity isn't as heavy in spring. You count the animals, all still here. Even the goat who tried to chew her way through a curtain survives, albeit with a singed tail and a grudge. The cow looks smug. You let her. She earned it. You take stock of the people too. 12 adults, still 12. 4 children, still 4. 1 baby, stronger now though, laughing, teething. You whisper thank you to the rafters, to the floor, to the fire, not to any specific god, not this time, just to the survival itself. You talk more openly now, about the things you did to get through, the hiding, the hoarding, the moments when you thought about giving up but didn't. You cry together, but this time, there's no barley flour involved, just fresh air and soft shoulders. Frida starts sorting seed stock. It's a disaster. Mold, rot, chew marks, but there's something salvageable. You kneel beside her, poking at the shriveled barley kernels. She grins. We'll plant anyway. You nod, because that's the deal. You bury things in the earth, and maybe they come back, maybe not. But you try. You repair the tools, patch the nets, test the soil with your fingers, talk about boats like they're real again. The days grow longer, the dark retreats, slowly, begrudgingly, but it goes. And one morning, you wake to birdsong, faint, distant, questioning. You listen. It's real. You step outside, squinting into the rising sun. You stretch your arms, your back, your breath. And for the first time in months, you feel warm, not just fire warm, but sun warm, hope warm. The others join you. No one says anything. No one has to. You're still here, and that's everything. The wind is quieter now, softer. It moves through the grasses and over the water with less urgency, less bite. You sit on a stone near the longhouse, eyes closed, face tilted toward the light. It's not hot, not yet, but it's real. The snow has melted in patches. Beneath it, the earth is brown, wet, eager. You press your fingers into it and feel it give. There's life in that give, and you realize you made it. Through the dark, through the hunger, through the knocking and the coughing and the silence, you're here. So you breathe slower, deeper, letting your chest rise and fall with the same rhythm as the wind. Someone hums behind you, the same tune from weeks ago, but lighter now, looser. You think about all the people who've lived through winters like this, quiet victories tucked into centuries of forgotten days, and you smile, because now you're part of that story. You stretch your legs, close your eyes again, let the last of the cold drift out of your lungs. It's spring, and the earth remembers you. Sleep well, friend. You've earned the rest.